I'm just going to start this off by saying, for the rest of my season previews, don't think about my projected records too much, because a lot has changed in the NBA, and I'm just here to talk about NBA teams. I made predictions because I was like, hey, maybe if they're right, they could be cool, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, don't think about that. Today we're here to talk about, if I remember correctly, the Warriors, right? Yep, the Golden State Warriors. Last year they were 44-38, 6th in the West. And this year, my original projected record for them was 41-41, 10th in the West. That easily could change, but they made big moves this offseason, man, or really just one really big move. But if you look at their depth chart, it's odd because there's 6 players here at the top who you could easily see any version of 5 of them starting. Okay, let me just put the locks for the starting lineup. Steph Curry is a lock for the starting lineup. Draymond Green is a lock for the starting lineup. After that, I really don't know. Because you have Klay Thompson, who is most likely going to be in the starting lineup. But then you have Chris Paul, Kevon Looney, and Andrew Wiggins. And there's so many different iterations of lineups you could run. The one I had here is Chris Paul, Curry, Klay, Draymond, Looney. You could do the same thing except move Chris Paul to the bench and put Wiggins at the 3. You could do the same thing moving Klay to the bench and putting Wiggins at the 3. You can even move Kevon Looney if you really want to go small ball, put Wiggins at the 4 and Draymond at the 5. So there's a lot of different things that they could do with this lineup. And there's 2 different ways you could look at it. It either makes them unstable or it makes them versatile. And when I say versatile, I mean when you're going against bigger teams, let's say you're going against the Lakers, you might want to run a bigger lineup out there with guys like Wiggins. Yeah, I'm sorry. My cats was fighting down. Not fighting, but you can hear them in the background. I'm sorry. What I was saying, this team is versatile. Or it could be, you could see it as they're versatile. So you could see it as they have that lineup where I said with Curry, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond, and Looney, and they could use that against teams like the Lakers, where you're gonna have to run big. Even though they don't really have a big man in that lineup, it's the biggest lineup that they can run out there, with Chris Paul coming off the bench. And that's an option that they have. There might be some days you want to run a small ball lineup for certain reasons against certain teams with Chris Paul, Curry, Klay, Draymond, and Looney or whatever, for whatever reason. Or especially an interesting or like a very good use for this 6-man starting lineup type thing is where if a guy gets injured, like Andrew Wiggins was injured for a good amount last year. Curry got injured last year. I think Klay, did he get injured? I can't remember if Klay got injured, but Chris Paul could get injured because he's getting older. So if any injuries happen, now you don't really have to worry about the starting lineup because you already got 6 guys there who could start. If one guy gets injured, now you just got 5. So it's versatile and it's a little weird when you actually look at it first, but I still think it could work. It could be a good lineup in the playoffs. This team is the type of team where in the regular season, I don't expect much from them, but I could definitely see them doing great things in the playoffs. Especially with the trade with CP3, I guess I should talk about that. CP3 is an interesting fit. That's what I put in my notes. CP3 is one of the greatest point guards of all time, and Curry is debatably the greatest point guard of all time. So when you have those two in the same backcourt, it is kind of interesting because they have very different play styles. First of all, Chris Paul is the definition of a point guard. He playmakes, he can score a bit in the mid-range and outside the 3 and finishing at the basket. He leads the offense, orchestrates everything. He's just that guy offensively, and even defensively too, at least in the past. I don't know how good he is defensively now, but in the past he's been a good defender and a great playmaker and just the definition of a point guard. And Curry is a guy that a lot of guys argue isn't actually a point guard because he's not a very traditional point guard. He's more of an off-ball mover type guy. He can run the offense when he's needed, but recently they've been orchestrating an offense where Draymond's really the guy orchestrating the offense, and Curry and Clay are the guys running around, getting open off the ball and getting shots. So that's the type of player Curry is. And when you put those two in a system together, hypothetically it should work, especially because Chris Paul is a great playmaker and he can handle the ball more, which takes a lot less attention. Because when you have a guy like Chris Paul, you have to pay attention to him, and you have to watch out for him because he can beat you sometimes as well. So when you have just another threat on the court, that pretty much, it's like the space, they have to watch out for Chris Paul more so they can't leave him to guard Curry more, and Curry gets more open opportunities. So that's a possible thing that could come from this. One questionable thing about this lineup is the size, because Chris Paul is like, what, 6 foot, 6'1"? Curry's like 6'3". So I actually don't know how tall Chris Paul is, but you get the point. Both of them are pretty small guards, and if you want to run them in a backcourt together, you would have to worry about defensively how that would go, because when you got guys in the league like Luka, like Shea, like LaMelo, like bigger Cade, like bigger guys, you might have to worry about that defensively, how they're going to guard them. So that's a possible question for this team on the defensive end. But on the offensive end, I actually do like this trade for the Warriors. I mean, I'm pretty sure I talked about the trade like a while ago. I can't even remember if I did though, because I remember when the trade happened, I was already busy with my mock draft, so I was like doing a lot of stuff. So I guess now is a good time to talk about the trade. But then again, it's been like 2 months. So I guess I only talk about the Warriors side. With Chris Paul, he's a good addition. He does make the team pretty small, but he adds a certain element to the team that could definitely work in the playoffs. I don't know how much it'll work in the regular season. I mean, of course it works all around, but I just think this team is a team built for playoff contention. It would be especially built for playoff contention if they got another big, which is another point that I have. They don't have size. Their tallest player is Kevon Looney, I think, at the moment, who was like 6'9". It might have changed since then, but since I made this depth chart like 2-3 weeks ago, I haven't been really able to keep up with all the recent changes that have happened. So hopefully they got some size. I could actually, you know what? I will check because I might as well. Rudy Gay, that's another thing about this team that I have to mention. There's a lot of these guys that they sign that are just like kind of like, I'm guessing, project type players who are like, oh, they can sign them if they're good, they keep them if they're bad, whatever, doesn't matter. But Rudy Gay is an interesting player because he does add, I might as well edit that now. He does add something to the team. I mean, he's not a big man. He does add some size, but you definitely could have gotten a taller guy, a bigger guy to help out the roster. I think that would definitely be a lot more useful. Why is this opening right now? Done. Okay. I definitely think it would have been a lot more useful to get a bigger guy, like a real big man. And Kevon Looney is good. Dario Saric is okay, but you don't really have a real 7-footer. And I think you at least need one of those guys on that team. This team is really the opposite of the Raptors, because the Raptors, this team has a good amount of shooting and not many big men. The Raptors have not enough shooting and too many big men. So it's kind of nice how they're polar opposites. But really my point is, I'm wondering how this team will be in the playoffs, because we saw last year AD was cooking this team because they didn't really have anybody who could guard him. So they didn't really fix that issue here, and that's why I'm kind of questionable about the team still. I don't see them. If I had to say if the Warriors were contenders right now, of course they're always going to have a chance purely because they have Steph Curry, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of teams out here in the West who have higher chances to compete in the playoffs than the Warriors. I mean, of course, there's always going to be a chance, but I don't know if they could actually do it purely because they don't have big men. And to win a championship, especially in recent years, if you look at, I mean, the Warriors did win 2 years ago, but even then, actually, yeah, Kevon Looney, yeah, I guess Kevon Looney. Let me look at that Warriors roster now and think about it. I'm going off script a lot here. I never write a script, but yeah, they didn't really have big men either. The Warriors, the big man position really has always been a hole for the Warriors, specifically the center position, because they've had Draymond at the power forward. But other than that, the center's just been weak and they've been just rotating through some guys. And you have Kevon Looney, and they did have Kevon Looney when they won a championship. But I don't know, man. With the teams that are in the league that you have to beat nowadays, because if you look past that Warriors ring, all the other championships, there was at least some sort of real big man. On the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic. On the Bucks, Giannis. On the Lakers, AD. On the Raptors, even you could say Marc Gasol. Of course, he's not at the level of the last three guys I just named, but he's still a good big man, and he's still like good. And then even they have Serge Ibaka. They had Pascal Siakam, taller guys. I mean, Pascal Siakam like 6'9", but still, you get the point. They have multiple guys who are like big men, big men. So, and like good big men too. So now when I think about the Warriors, I'm wondering, are they still going to be able to run this team with no big men, especially when they have to go against teams with dominant big men like the Nuggets and the Lakers and possibly the Bucks if they made it to the finals? I don't know, man. I don't know, because if you put Giannis against this Warriors team, Draymond's a great defender. But I don't know if Draymond's stopping Giannis. 6'11" Giannis, just about 7 foot Giannis, getting to the basket every single time. Or not every single time, but he's Giannis. He's Giannis. So it's definitely an interesting team. Of course, you still have Draymond. You still have a lot of great defenders, but I don't know if you have any great post defenders. Draymond's a good defender, but he can't be guarding Brook Lopez and Giannis at the same time. I mean, Brook Lopez is a guy who works all around the court, not just in the post, but you get my point. They might need more defenders to help out, and more big men to help out. So that's where I'm at with this Warriors team. There's one last thing I want to talk about with the young players on this team and the old players on this team. This team is old. Chris Paul is like, 37, 38. Rudy Gay is 37. Curry's 35. Clay and Draymond are both in their early 30s. And they traded away Jordan Poole and they got rid of James Wiseman. The real young core of this team is the guy who they just drafted, Brandon, I don't know how to say his last name, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, I forgot his first name, oh my goodness, and Trace Jackson Davis. And that's a solid young core, but it's not good. Especially when you had Jordan Poole and James Wiseman, who hasn't really done much yet, but still, you had them before and now you trade them away to win now, and it makes sense because you have Steph Curry. You're not trying to just waste his time while he's at this level that he's been at. You're trying to win now, and you want to do anything you can to win as soon as possible. So trading away young players in that sense makes sense, but still the young core for the future after these guys, Curry, Clay, and Draymond, after this old core really fades out and the new guys start coming in. I mean, of course, they still have time to make draft picks and all that stuff, but I mean, Jonathan Kuminga is a guy who I'm actually interested to see this year because he's really the main young piece on this team who people are expecting stuff from, and I actually want to see how he plays because he's been a pretty good piece for the Warriors for like the past 2 years, from the championship to last year when he was doing pretty good for them as well. and now this is going to his 3rd or 4th year, and this is when you'd expect a jump from him, if there is going to be a jump. And if he does get better and actually does bring a lot more to the team than he was doing before, I can absolutely see that helping this Warriors team rank a lot higher. But you know what I'm saying? It's interesting. I guess if I had to put a ceiling and a floor for this Warriors team, their depth isn't great, but their depth has never really been great. They've really just been this team with pure star power. I guess I'd put them, their floor is definitely like 11 seed, because I could see this team completely failing like the Lakers did with Westbrook and like what the Mavericks did last year. There's always a team that performs below expectations, but I could see this team, their ceiling being legit a 6 seed, because that's how close the West is this year, man. That's how close it is. It's tough out here. We'll see what happens, but for now, tell me what you think down below. I'm actually curious to see what you guys think about the Warriors. Of course, you look at the team, you see Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Draymond, and Clay, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's a fire little team right there. But when you actually think about it, with how old these players are and with the depth of the team, I don't know. We'll see what happens. This is definitely a team built amazingly for the playoffs, or at least decently for the playoffs. But we'll see what happens this season. We'll see what happens. But if you enjoyed, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Comment down below any tips, tricks, or topics. I almost said it. Topics you have me to talk about on this channel. That'll be it for me today. See you guys next time. I'm out.